This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwallpod Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 542 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your Stefan Butzko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund signing Konstantinos Karetsas, even though it's not officially official yet, but enough for us to be confident about it. And we'll also talk about if Said El Mala is the next one on Ole Book's shopping list. For that and more, I'm joined by Lars Pollmann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan. First of all, I am regretting my choice of agreeing to do an episode at about 10 p.m. German time, which is past my bedtime. But other than that, I'm fine with a minor gripe, Stefan, because I would have liked an invite for the discussion with our expert guest, Wim, on the last episode. Not because I'm an expert on Konstantinos Karetsas, but because I recently read a book about the Burgundians, which is obviously the regime, I suppose one could say, that gave birth to the nation of Belgium. So I'm sure I would have gotten along splendidly with Wim, but I would also have disgraced myself because I always thought it's Genk, not Genk, and he always said Genk. So maybe you even saved me, Stefan. So how are you doing?
I don't know. I asked him too, and it was more of a Genk, something like that. I can't. My mouth does not have the ability to make that sound, honestly.
But on the episode, he always said Genk. Maybe he dumbed it down for us or our
Maybe,
our listenership.
Yeah.
I'm not casting any aspersions, but here we are.
Yeah, but thank you for pointing that out. So if you haven't listened to it yet, please go back to the last episode, episode 541, where I've interviewed Wim Neist from the Genk podcast Terrell Talks about Konstantinos Karetsas, because I think that's probably more insightful than whatever we're going to say now. But nevertheless, Lars, now that I have you here, we can talk about it. But before we do that, just one quick note. The Bundesliga has a new TV deal with, dropping ESPN and picking up USA Network / Fandango. And of course, there's also a Spanish version with Telemundo on Peacock. We were going to discuss this now with Matthias, but he bailed on us last second, so we're going to push that to the next episode because it makes more sense to discuss this with someone else who is also living in the United States. Lars, I think you don't really mind.
No, I've never heard of Fandango, the streaming app. I only know Fandango as a dance. A reference, Stefan, which you didn't get when we discussed this on X, the Everything app. And my only question is, what is the epithet for Fandango as an app? Do they also have a weird claim?
I have no idea, but it is a ticket app. I don't know, but there's a social trend where you find a new slogan for a brand, and then people say the slogan, and then you make it so, like this one NFL review schedule that the Chargers posted a while ago. I think it was the Chargers, but anyway, I very much digress. Jesus Christ. People are listening because Dortmund are signing 18-year-old, turning 19 in November, Konstantinos Karetsas from KRC Genk. He is just 1.71 meters tall, so 5'7" for the Americans out there. Again, he is born in Genk, but to Greek parents, and played for Genk's youth, then played in Anderlecht for 3 years before returning to Genk. He is the youngest scorer of the Pro League in Belgium, and he has 92 appearances for club and country, and accumulated around 6 goals and 23 assists in that time. So these are more or less the data, Lars. But from the reports that you've seen, what are the, let's say, financial ramifications around that deal for Dortmund? And are you happy with the business that has reportedly been done by Ole Book and co?
The fixed fee is rumored or reported to be 30 million, 2 million in easily attainable bonuses, which these days always has to be, the distinction has to be made between likely to be earned and not likely to be earned, which would be NFL terms. But the big question obviously is the sell-on clause, which I haven't seen anything on that. I'm assuming because Genk were reportedly looking for a financial package more in the realm of 40 million plus. I would assume that the sell-on clause is quite hefty. There are two kinds of sell-on clauses. One, a bit more common, I think, is actually only considering the extra amount of money made. So if Dortmund were to sell Karetsas for more than what they paid, then in those terms, Genk would only get a percentage of the surplus value, if that makes sense. But I'm kind of assuming in this case, because it seems like Genk made a bit of a concession to Dortmund, that they will have the, I guess, more interesting sell-on clause, which is just taking, let's say, 25% or whatever it is from any future sale value. So let's say Dortmund sell Karetsas for 60 million in 2 years, then Genk would get 15 million of those. If 25% was the sell-on clause, once again, that is all just conjecture on my part. There is no reporting that I've seen on it, but it seems fairly safe to assume that there is a hefty sell-on clause, because otherwise the financials don't really make sense, because there has been this kind of stalemate over the last, 10 days or so. I mean, the aforementioned episode with our expert from Belgium wasn't exactly yesterday that you recorded this, so they were working away at this deal for quite a while. I think ultimately for Dortmund, this seems to be a fairly solid deal. They didn't have to completely break the bank. They should still have a little bit of wiggling room for perhaps Said El-Mala or other moves they might want to make. And ultimately, I think long-term listeners know that I don't actually care too much about transfer fees and all that stuff, because as long as a signing isn't debilitating long-term, I always like to look more at the player they actually get and not what they have to pay for someone. And in those terms, I think it's very hard not to be super excited, because they've signed are about to sign one of the most exciting attacking midfielders in all of European football. They obviously had this massive hole in their squad planning with Julian Brandt leaving. And to be honest, I think whenever I watched, Karetsas highlights or cut-ups, I obviously don't watch a lot of, which is to say none, full games of Genk. But when I watched whatever I did watch of Karetsas, I kind of felt like he was a fairly similar player to Brandt. Maybe, or not maybe, definitely a bit more individually skilled. So he likes to take players on a bit more than Brandt. Maybe technically a little bit more gifted. Obviously Brandt much taller, a bit more physical. But I think it's a very interesting, exciting signing and filling the biggest hole in the squad. So in those terms, and with the financials being, from what we can tell, pretty favorable to Dortmund, I think it's hard not to think of this as a very good move for Dortmund.
Yeah, I think we can proudly disclaim that Borussia Dortmund have a true number 10 again. I mean, if we look at the statistics, and obviously the sample size isn't extremely huge, but he has already played around I think 8,000 minutes or something in his very young career. No, that can't be right. I don't know what that number is, where this is coming from, but when we talk about his statistics, as Wim said, he has not really scored too many goals, but he talked about the ketchup bottle as basically that when it happens, he'll probably score a boatload of goals. We'll see how that turns out and how he adjusts to the Bundesliga. But just if you look at the assists, he's in the 99th percentile. If you look at the goal creating actions, it's the 98th percentile. Progressive passes, 95th percentile. Big chances created, 98th percentile. So pretty much all the statistics where it is about creating chances, about making key passes or also chipped passes. His heat map is very much in the right half space. So you would expect, since he's left-footed, a lot of chip passes sort of in the area that in the box where there's the far post. I would assume that we will get someone that can absolutely dissect opposition defenses, and my hope is that he really excels also against low block opponents, because when we talk about Elmala in a second, that's where I have a little bit of a headache already. But yeah, I think it's amazing to see the technique, the dribbling, the intelligence. But yeah, like what I love so much about him is just the Hollywood passes that he has. Just this line-breaking pass between the channels, the pass that maybe you as the viewer don't even see as he plays it, and then only after he played the ball it becomes obvious. I am extremely excited about him. Obviously, I've had enough time to talk myself into it a little bit too, because you want to, approach a transfer like this with a open mind and a positive mind. But I think this is maybe a little bit of a return for Dortmund to betting on young, highly talented players. And I don't know about you, Lars, but I think this is maybe the first representation of the shift in Dortmund's overall strategy. How do you think about this, maybe also in the bigger context of Dortmund's approach to transfers and how they are planning their squad in general?
I think that's kind of a hard argument to make when previously in this window they signed Pratis, Justin Lerma and Joan Gadou, and Gadou is the oldest of the bunch at 20 years old. So the shift has already happened, in my opinion. Obviously, the financials make Karetsas into the most, important of those signings as of right now. I think Elmala would definitely shift the focus a little bit more, because Cologne are asking for an even higher package than what Dortmund have apparently fixed up for Karetsas. But it's definitely fitting into the overall strategy that has become apparent. I mean, we all knew from quite a long time ago that they were going to sign Lerma and Pratis, and honestly, if those were the only two talents, let's call them, that they would have signed this transfer window, that would already have been, interesting and exciting, because spending so much money on teenagers from South America with no European experience, there's always quite a bit of risk involved, but also you don't need too much fantasy to have an idea of what that could turn into. And now that they've also added Gadou and Karetsas for, let's say, 50 odd million, and are looking to sign Said Elmala as well, who's 19, I think. I think it is becoming basically irrefutable that Dortmund have come back to what made them so good on the transfer market for a long time, and which they went away from for understandable reasons, I would say. It's not like they had a system that worked and they suddenly went away from it willy-nilly. We talked quite a few times on this show about how the transfer market overall has developed in a way that is not very beneficial to Dortmund, because a lot of clubs have kind of identified this talent strategy for themselves. I think it's hard to say now that Dortmund are the best place for young players in Europe, which they used to be. I think they are among the best places, but quite a few players also have kind of changed their attitudes a little bit, I suppose. I always bring up Arda Güler, for example, or Franco Massantuono, who both went to Real Madrid without, a stepping stone in, let's say, the Bundesliga. And it's good that they still have pull, I suppose, with players like Karetsas. Obviously, there are factors that played into their hands. I think you and Wim talked about his family wanting to stay relatively close to Genk, and you can go to Genk from Dortmund by car in under 3 hours. I think, depending perhaps on traffic jams when work ends or whatever. But ultimately, I think if there's one criticism towards the end of this transfer window, which obviously is still going for more than a month, if they, after Karetsas, also sign El Mala, I think the average age of their signings will be below 19. And I think when you lose Julian Brandt and Niklas Süle, and to a lesser extent Salih Özcan, that's a lot of experience you're missing, and you are betting a lot on young players, also including some of the talents that Dortmund have already got in their squad with, the likes of Mane, Inacio, Rejani, maybe Matisse Albert, and Soto Santos, who's really played well in preseason so far, and a few others in the pipeline. I guess that would be the 1 second guess, that maybe there's too much of a focus on young players, but I would also say it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. It feels like there's no way they could satisfy everyone, and when they signed all these more experienced players, everyone clamored for them to go back to their talent strategy, and now that they've basically exclusively looked at young players, I'm sure a lot of people will talk about lack of experience, lack of leadership and all that. So I know what I think is more interesting and exciting, and it's basically the way that Dortmund have gone over the last few weeks.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm still very happy about getting to see the quote-unquote raw version of an Erling Haaland or Ousmane Dembele or so, because it was just simply fun. And were they always on fire? No, there were inconsistencies, but I mean, Haaland, I think, probably one of the bigger exceptions to that, because he was pretty consistent. But still, I think the same we'll see with Karetsas. He'll have good games, he'll have bad games, and maybe it's going to cost Dortmund some wins here and there. That he will not shine every other day or so. But yeah, like you just said, Dortmund are also pretty stacked in the attacking department. If we look at Dortmund's depth chart right now, I would say that even without signing El Mala, they are pretty decent in terms of attacking midfielders and secondary strikers. You just mentioned Inacio Lerma. I don't know if Dos Santos is going to be more of a number 10 or more of a number 8. The thing about these positions is that we have a lot of players that can play on the more advanced positions in midfield, but also more on the number 8. Like Sabitzer, to me, can also play at number 10. But it's probably better as a number 8. I'm not entirely sure, but certainly if you play on that position in certain situations, he can deliver for you. Even if it's just counter pressing. Chukwuemeka is certainly a player that can play further up front, but also as a number 8. And other than that, you already mentioned Lerma, Inacio, Albert, all good players. Bayer, of course, someone that we can mention, and even Silva can play as a secondary striker. And of course, big sensation Yamamoto might be on that list if he can replicate his performance in the friendly against Oberhausen. But I guess we'll see if he can actually do that or not. But yeah, if you look at Dortmund's theoretical starting lineup, Lars, right now in I guess in a 3-4-2-1. I'm putting Kobel in goal, and then you have Schlotterbeck, Anton, Gadu as your backline. In central midfield, you'll have Mecha and Bellingham. And the wing-back positions is still, I think, the biggest question mark with Svensson and Riasson, I assume. But maybe Bayer will be more a wing-back. But right now I've penciled in Svensson and Riasson on left and right, because I have no idea what the situation with Prac is. He's injured as of right now. We haven't really even seen him in those meaningless friendlies. And yeah, up front then I would have Bayer next to Karetsas, and then Girassi all the way up top. That is sort of my starting 11 molded by the 3-4-2-1 system that Kovac has employed. You could also move by a little bit further ahead, and Karetsas more centrally as a number 10, even though I said the heat map has him more on the right, in the right half spaces or so. But personally, I like a player like him also smack dab in the middle. He's going to float around anyhow, but sort of what do you have a counter argument? What's sort of your construction for now?
I think I'd probably have the same 11. With the caveat, obviously, that Nico Schlotterbeck is going to miss the first few games of the season. But you can easily pencil in Bensebaini, for example. I think that works just as well. Maybe one of Mane or Rijani might have the upper hand over Gadou in the first few games of the season, just because a new signing coming into a new league, there's always a bit of a learning curve. And Gadou didn't play that much in the second half of last season for Salzburg. The preseason so far, he's looked a little bit shaky here and there, but overall, I think the thing that stands out with Gadou is just the sheer size. Like, he's a brick wall. And there's a lot to work on there, obviously, but that's the one position, I suppose, that I would be a bit hesitant to just set into stone right now. A lot of the same things could be said about Karetsas, but obviously if you sign someone for that amount of money, with that amount of work being put in to make the transfer happen, I think Ole Book knows every corner of Genk now, because he's gone there twice for this negotiation with Genk. You can kind of assume that he's going to get every opportunity, at least to earn a starting spot very early in the season. The thing with Bayer, I think, given that we kind of are penciling in Karetsas as the, right-sided number 10, or however one wants to put it, he's usually playing in that right half space because he's got a wicked left foot, and those are the angles where he can either play one of those deadly balls that you mentioned earlier, or go for goal himself on his stronger left foot. I think that pairs well with Bayer, because Bayer brings the work rate off the ball, which I'm pretty sure is going to be the area in which Karetsas has to improve the most, just because he's not played in a league as intense as the Bundesliga, even though the Belgian Pro League has improved leaps and bounds over the last few years. I think a lot of people are rating them as the, sixth best league in Europe now, which didn't used to be the case, maybe seventh, I don't know. But I'm sure that Niko Kovac has a few things to teach Karetsas in terms of working off the ball and work rate and all that. And that's what Bayer gives you every time, even if nothing else, Maxi Bayer will always give you maximum effort and a lot of runs. And I can kind of see that being a very good pairing with Karetsas, because Bayer likes to attack the deep parts of the field and make offer a lot of runs, and Karetsas is obviously someone, as you already mentioned, that can pick out a pass. So I think not only Zero Girassi, but also Maximilian Bayer should be very happy with this reported signing. Now, if Said El Mala also comes, then there's kind of a logjam up front, and I would kind of assume, a domino move. Maybe Fabio Silva, because I don't really see how he gets too much playing time if El Mala also comes. And I think then also you might be looking more at Bayer as like a full-time almost wing back, but kind of deputizing on both sides, because obviously they aren't too well stocked on the wing back positions. And I think you can kind of put him on both sides, because he's not going to give you many crosses either way. So he might as well be playing on the left, which he usually does when he plays in attack. So I think those are kind of the spots where something might still happen. I think everything else, like, we don't really expect him to also sign a defensive midfielder who changes our opinion on the Bellingham matchup pairing. I don't expect them to sell Julian Riasson, so I don't think they will have to go for another right back or whatever. So I think we can kind of pencil in the starting 11 with the only real question, in my opinion, being does Said El-Mala also come, which also would kind of change my excitement level once again.
Yeah, that is a very good question. So schematically, how do you think he would fit in? Like, would he, if we look at it, more or less replace Bayer, and it would be a double 10 of Karetsas and El-Mala? That is my question. So I'm a little bit of an El-Mala skeptic at this moment, I'll be honest, just because I think when Dortmund play against low block opponents, he's going to struggle a little bit, and his work rate is also not the best. So two young players that may not have the most defensive discipline, I think, is giving me a tiny Kovac headache. But I obviously also see the upside with El-Mala, but I think you might see a little bit more than I do. So yeah, have at it, Lars. How would a Dortmund attack look like, and would Niko Kovac have to get away from the current system just to make a little bit more room for all the attacking talent that Dortmund have? Because at least in my philosophy is the most talented players should probably be on the field if you can find the right system for it.
First of all, I think we, as the football public or whatever, tend to overrate formations, because ultimately it doesn't really matter how it looks on the team sheet before the game. If we draw El-Mala in as the, left-sided number 10, the counterpart to Karetsas, for example, in our thought experiment, that doesn't mean he plays the same position as Karetsas, because as you already mentioned, El-Mala, a bit more of a straight line player, at least so far at Cologne. They used him quite a bit as a center forward, especially in the second half of the season, because they wanted him on the pitch, because he's got attributes that are very hard to defend. His pace, his dynamism, which is the same as pace, I suppose. He's also got a fairly robust body for a 19-year-old. He's taller than Karetsas, for example. He's much more sturdily built. So regardless of what the formation ultimately is, I think they would play very differently. I think, much like I said about Bayer, I think El-Mala and Karetsas could work really well together, because El-Mala is the kind of player that can reach, those through balls that Karetsas likes to play, and those chips towards the second post and whatever. I think El-Mala has a very good nose for goal. I think he's also, let me put it this way, I think a lot of people who are skeptical of El-Mala, which fair enough, especially given the financial outlay that would have to be expended by Dortmund, definitely a new record signing. But I think we kind of need to get away from the idea that we are judging this player only for what he's done in his lone Bundesliga season for Cologne, which was obviously, aside fighting against relegation, a lot of counterattacks and all that. So that's not the only thing that his skill set would be conducive to. I think his ball control is better than, for example, Karim Adeyemi's. I think he's better in front of goal than Karim Adeyemi. He's younger than Karim Adeyemi. Might be more versatile positionally, also because of his size. I wouldn't be scared of playing El-Mala as a central forward at Dortmund, especially, 9, 12, 18 months down the road with, a little bit of seasoning at the highest level in the Champions League or whatever. I think it could work really well, but I would also kind of believe that it's not necessarily in Niko Kovac's nature as a head coach to build a team around Karetsas and El-Mala, because he would definitely have to make concessions in terms of, work rate off the ball and that stuff that we've already mentioned. So as of right now, I'm kind of not really in the camp of those who believe that it's going to happen with El-Mala, just because also the financial outlay, and as I said before, there would almost have to be a domino move on the outgoing side, because there are then too many players, definitely. And seeing as I don't believe there's too much of a market for Fabio Silva, for example, I think Zero Girassi isn't going anywhere this season. That's why I'm skeptical, but I can see definitely the vision. And once again, I think we need to look at what Elmala can do and not only at what he has already done, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you want to project a little bit more of what he can become at Dortmund. And obviously, it does help if you have more skilled players around. Especially having a Karetsas would be a boon for any attacking player. I believe very strongly that if Bayer plays in a more attacking area, even as a left wing back, I believe that he will be a massive benefactor of Karetsas. Same with for Girassi, we've already mentioned it. I think obviously Julian Brandt and others can also play a really mean pass. I don't want to disrespect it at all, but I do believe that Karetsas is going to be, I want to say life-changing, because we had a lot of good number 10s in our lives. Shinji Kagawa just being back on Dortmund's social during their Asia tour is a very good reminder of that. But still, I think in terms of passing and chance creation, also I'm really wondering how the synergy, we haven't really talked about that yet, but with Mecha is, and if even a Joe Bellingham can chime in here and there, even though we haven't seen much of that, honestly. But yeah, and Dortmund are also expecting to have more come from a Chukwuemeka, and if that happens, I think we have a very technical squad, very technical midfields, and a very dominant team that can probably create a lot of chaos even against low block oppositions, which is of course a big concern. But if we look at how last season went, Dortmund actually managed to dismantle a lot of teams that are sort of in the middle to lower region of the Bundesliga, and something they have struggled with, but on the flip side didn't really do much damage against teams that are in the top club category, if you will, be it in the Champions League or also in the Bundesliga. If we look at Elmala, that's certainly also a player for exactly those duels against the Stuttgarts and Leverkusens and Bayerns and all that. I think he would absolutely thrive in these situations, and that would be my biggest argument for him. Is obviously, your squad building needs to consider many things, and I think Dortmund still need to, mainly focus on how they can break down defensive oppositions, because most teams will play in a defensive style against them. So having a very smart, intelligent playmaker that can pass and dribble around in tight spaces is very important. But you also need players that can attack space in games where it is important. I think losing Adeyemi in that sense hurts, but with Maximilian Bayer, you certainly still have a player that can do that on a pretty elite level. And with Silva, you have a striker that in theory can do that too, if he only can become a little bit more of a threat in front of goal. But in terms of runs and passes, Silva, I think, is a pretty intelligent and technically gifted player to do exactly that. So, you want to have different guys for different situations, and adding Elmala, at least in my book, would make a big difference. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But like you said, I am a little bit skeptical as well whether Dortmund actually have the funds to purchase a player like him, and if they do, if that means that they're going to lack in other departments. I have no idea, but as of right now, my belief of Elmala actually playing in a Dortmund shirt next season isn't that high. But at the same time, Elmala himself, I think, is ready to make the next step. And there are a lot of reports about El Mama, Jesus Christ. But his mother and his parents are also kind of keen of him joining Dortmund and not being too far away from Cologne, similar to factors that were mentioned around Karetsas. So maybe that in the end will bring Dortmund in a stronger negotiating position if they can agree to terms with the players and then sit at the table with Cologne. But honestly, I don't know if Dortmund will actually pay the amount that is asked, because I think the package right now is the asking price around 50 million. That would be quite a lot of money, honestly. I would say I don't know if the absolute need is there for him or not, because my assessment of him is not something that you can go by, honestly, because I simply haven't seen enough of him to know whether he has that world-class ceiling or not. But I feel like if he spent that much money, he almost should have, because that needs to be an absolute difference maker. Then that's where I'm at right now. But at the same time, I feel like Dortmund also still need to bolster their wing-back positions, etc. I don't know if they make one big splash or spend the cash elsewhere. I also don't know what the planning is for the season after, because the likes of Sabitzer and Bensebaini and so on will also move away. And I don't know if Guirassy will play a second season after this one, so to speak. And what will happen of Silva, I don't know, because right now people are calling him the next Nelson Valdez, which does not bode well, if I'm being honest. So, yeah. And of course, Mecha and Schlotterbeck are also candidates that probably will want to make the next step as well at some point. So, there's still a lot of work to be done, and you obviously need to plan for these eventualities as well. So all I'm trying to say is El Mala is maybe nice to have, but maybe not a must-have, as there are maybe other issues that plop up in the next transfer summers. So Lars, I don't know if you have another take on that, but we talked a little bit about synergies and Karetsas. Who do you think of all the players will be the main benefactor of Karetsas and his skill set around him?
Well, as of right now, the most logical candidate is Guirassy, because we can safely assume that he's going to be the starting center forward for Dortmund, and he's about to get a very creative, assist giver, if that makes sense. So even though playing style wise, once again, I think, those attackers who like to go deep, who attack the deep parts of the pitch, who offer runs, which really isn't Guirassy's game. He's more of a fox in the box these days. So if it came to it, El Mala, I would also perhaps say Inacio. I think he has a pretty decent nose for goal, even though he doesn't really have the athleticism to, offer those runs that the other guys do. Even though I think playing style wise, those are maybe the best partners for Karetsas. I think the logical answer is probably Guirassy, much more so than it would be for Fabio Silva, because I'm pretty sure Fabio Silva sees himself as more of a Karetsas type. At least that's kind of the part of the pitch where he's always turning up. Maybe the only nod in this show to the preseason game against Fortuna Düsseldorf. Obviously, it didn't matter whatsoever that they lost the game, but kind of indicative of at least how I feel about Fabio Silva, that in, stoppage time of a game they were losing, once again, losing it didn't really matter, but the starting or the center forward of Borussia Dortmund was to be found everywhere but in the box. And I think in stoppage time alone, he made 2 back heels to no one in particular, instead of, being in the box and being a striker and waiting for a chance. I think long-time listeners of this show, and I will just refer to our award show with Konstantin a few weeks back, will know that I don't really see it with Fabio Silva, certainly as a center forward. So I think one positive aspect of also going for El Mala, as I kind of mentioned before, I think there would need to be a corresponding move, and I would very much be in favor of that move being Fabio Silva getting a move away from Dortmund, because I don't really see the vision how he's ever going to turn into more than he was last season, an occasionally impact substitute, which I don't think is what he wants to be at his point of his career.
Yeah, I would agree. Sort of bringing the energy is not enough. I think we will just need a little bit more from Fabio Silva if he breaks through. But considering the talent, I personally also like the vision of seeing him, unless of course there's an injury crisis or whatnot, of him really getting consistent minutes. And the one benefit I guess he'll have is that he has a full preseason this time around. When he arrived here, he arrived with an injury, and that's sometimes a setback, and sometimes players do need another season to really adjust to Dortmund's playing style. And I mean, on paper he could be a good fit, but so far he hasn't really fit in that well. I feel like there are not that many synergies in terms of passing and chemistry with other players where I say, wow, if he's paired with this or that player, he is absolutely amazing. And like you said, the early preseason showings are also not very promising. The lack of positioning in the box is also something that really stood out to me, where I was sometimes thinking about, wow, Dortmund now have the ball in a dangerous area or somewhere right about to make the pass, and there's just no center forward, even though he's on the field, because he just got lost somewhere else. And he looked very ineffective overall, I want to say. So a signing we're scratching our heads a little bit, but Sergei Girassi, I think, had a very difficult season last season, also just because he was not receiving the service that he needs. And when we talk about the chip balls over the top of the backline of the opposing backline, then he is someone that can really convert those. Well, he knows how to position for those. He, whether it's a chest control or just a straight header, is someone that can fire those home. So I'm already excited about these, especially when Dortmund have not much else going for them against low block opponents. Then that's going to be a thing, but also think that Dortmund will have a lot of chance creation from Karetsas against opponents that aren't low block, where he has actual space, because we haven't really discussed it too much, but he is obviously also an amazing dribbler. His take-ons are 5.71 right now on average, which is, I assume, a number that will go down under Niko Kovac, but he is in the 97th percentile with that. And obviously also a weapon that Dortmund didn't have as much with Adeyemi, even though he wasn't too bad of a 1v1 player. But especially also in late game situations, I think Dortmund, with the substitutions they can make, whether it's Inacio and Albert, and then you have Karetsas in there too, there's a lot of dribbling skills. So maybe Dortmund will unlock a lot of opponents simply by dribbling past them. So that is certainly something we can also look forward to, because it's fun. And I'm wondering how Ryerson will benefit from that, because if Karetsas is more on the right side, I assume he will get a lot of passes into space. And if nothing else, to me, the World Cup once again showed that Ryerson is just an insane crosser at this point of his career. A skill that he really developed, be it set pieces or just a regular cross into the box. And I think this is also going to help with Ryerson to probably boost his assist numbers as well. So, long story short, I'm really excited. I can't wait to see Karetsas in the preseason games. He's probably not going to travel to Japan, because it doesn't make much sense since Dortmund will be there a total of 5 days, and his medical is on Wednesday. So I assume the announcement will not be sooner than Thursday, maybe. Maybe it's on Wednesday. I don't know. But Dortmund will probably return, and then we'll see him in the season opening friendlies or so. And, honestly, I also don't know how much he will feature in the starting 11 right from the start of the season, since he is joining relatively late.
We might mention that the Belgian league starts, I think, 3 weeks before the Bundesliga, at least in the first match day. I don't know about any cups, but usually, preseason is made out. So you are in decent shape for the first, league match.
Oh,
he might be
he's further ahead.
at a decent spot in terms of, his conditioning and whatever. So it's not like he's joining so late that he's going to have, so much work to do to catch up with everyone else. So at least in those terms, and once again, with the financial outlay, the way it is, I'm pretty sure they're going to try to get him up to speed in terms of, playing with his teammates in the friendlies against Arsenal and Roma, and then the Super Cup against Bayern, which is obviously a friendly unless Dortmund win, which makes it a very important fixture, as you kind of mentioned in previous episodes. So just thought to mention that because I don't really remember the last time Dortmund made a signing from Belgium. Was it Ivan Perisic? Have they done anything since from Belgium?
I don't think so. They signed a Belgian, but not from Belgium. I don't think so.
No, I'm pretty. No one springs to mind anyway. So there's a nice little fun fact for our keen-eared listeners who will perhaps put in the YouTube comments, Stefan, how wrong we were about this, because I'm sure we forgot about someone.
Yeah, if we were wrong, put it in the YouTube comments, and while you're there, also subscribe, because definitely want to reach the 1,000 subscribers soon. So better get to that. And yeah, that should be it for this episode. I can't wait to discuss the Fandango app in more detail with Matthias, hopefully next week, if he hopefully has a little bit more time. But until then, as always, thank you for listening, and hopefully we could raise your excitement a little bit about Karetsas. It's been definitely an exciting week for myself since LeBron James joined the Philadelphia 76ers. So yeah, in terms of players coming that are fun, yeah, I'm definitely on the up. We'll talk to you hopefully next week. And if you have any questions, drop them in the YouTube comments. And I think next week is probably a very good time to answer those. Until then, enjoy your summer. Goodbye.